This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Traveling Rumors podcast with your host, Mary O'Quendo. My guest today is Anyta Klock, correct?
Clock. Anyta
Klock?
Klock. Yep.
Okay, I was debating, was it Klock or Klock?
Oh, wall clock. Just think wall clock and put a K on it instead of a C.
Okay, so Anyta, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Not a problem. Super
So
happy
this
to be here.
this series is all about the interesting things groomers do. Okay, so Anyta, and I remember the term, Anyta is an angler.
Yes, it is. It is the term, or yeah, pretty
Fisher,
much.
fishing
Super
person.
person. It is angler.
Okay, so tell me a little bit. Let's start off with why do you love doing that?
Oh, because it's in a way tranquil to be able to sit along the bank of a body of water and just take in the view and your environment and wait for that bite on your line. Oh my gosh. And then when you get that bite, it's on. It's just exhilarating.
All right, I remember I was in Chicago one time, and it's so the show was the H Backer show, I think. So October in Chicago, it's cold, right? And there were people floating in the river in
Mm-hmm.
Chicago in
Mm-hmm.
October fishing. So they were
Mm.
in those little tubey things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they were just like floating in the river. I thought that was the most insane hobby to do. I'm thinking, that's pretty cold.
I have not gone wading for fishing. I think fly fishermen tend to go wading. Some
No,
people
this wasn't waiting. This wasn't waiting. This was like they had the waders on and then a tube that kept them floating in the water. They were
yeah,
floating in a river, okay, in
yeah.
Chicago in October. I don't know how else to emphasize that water must have been really cold.
Oh, I bet it was. Thankfully, though, the rubber waders tend to help buffer that cold. But yeah, I guess I'll have to research with the tube. I thought that was considered wading when you did have the inner
Oh, I
tube.
don't know. I'm not an angler. I don't know what any of those terms mean.
There's a lot of different ways you can fish for sure. I'm more of the getting a boat if I'm gonna be on water. I prefer not to be in the water, just
Okay.
on it.
I mean, I could see the allure of it. I could see sitting in a boat doing nothing but having yeah, and just waiting maybe if something bites the line, whatever. But there are
Mhm.
people who take fishing very, very seriously.
Yes, there are. I don't know if I'd call myself a hardcore. If I had the ability to be, I would definitely jump in hardcore. But right now I have to manage life along with that hobby on the side. But that's my retirement plan for the future someday.
Okay, all right. So how do you retire with fishing?
How do
Tell
you, oh,
because
just
this is really important because people don't realize some of the options that are kind of out there for them that they don't have to work at a very physical job until the day they die. There are options. So you tell me that option.
Well, I wouldn't make it a career. I would just make it something that I could do because it's simply just such a fun hobby. I don't know. I enjoy it so much that I wouldn't mind waking up, getting real early morning out on the water, catching those fish at the biting times. I don't know. That would be a retirement in my mind, even if I spent all day on a boat in the future.
Okay, so how do you retire as an angler? I mean, how could you make a living as an angler? Let's start there.
Oh, I'd have to do a lot of research to know how to. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about what angling jobs you can do as retired. I'd have to search into that kind of thing.
I
I'm a simple angler right now. So
I had a client who had a charter boat,
there
and
you go.
and that's all he did. He took people out on this was in New York, so I'm going to say the Hudson River, and um, maybe out into the ocean. I'm not sure. I didn't ask a whole lot of questions. All I know is he had a boat and people paid him so he could go fishing.
I've also have a client that also does charter fishing. Now that's how that salmon that I gave you a piece of.
I was very
Um,
good.
huh?
It was very good.
Oh man, so that was fresh cut off the river here in the Umpqua Valley. Now that gentleman, he's a fish and guide service, and I definitely have blown a lot of money because it's just something worth it to me to get out on the water. We get up real early, we go out on the water early and drop in on those holes and it's on. It's just something I'm just thankful it's a part of my life and that I can do it.
Okay. So, I mean, you do have a means to consider down the line if you're like 15, 20 years from now going, I'm not grooming forever. So you have options in something that you love to do, but now you're financing this, correct?
Yeah, in a way, yeah, pretty much.
Well, honestly, it's kind of the way it should be. We shouldn't as groomers or any industry just like work, 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 work and don't have any fun. What's the point?
Agree, right?
And it's finding the thing we love.
Oh yeah. And that's fishing for me. That's an addiction I can't I can't shake.
All right. And so let me tell you about this piece of salmon that Anita gave me. So I'm here in Washington and I can go literally, if I was so inclined, walk down to John Wayne Marina and go buy some fish. A little bit of a walk, doable, but yeah, maybe I drive there. Okay. The point is, I live on the peninsula. All right. I have access to fresh fish. And let me tell you something. You think the fish that you get fresh caught in the supermarket compares? It does not compare at all.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there are commercial fishing. I mean, I you're probably right about that. Something fresh caught. Yeah, that's pretty delicious. In our area, from what I hear, if you taste a fish coming in for the spawn, if you catch it right at the coastline right there before it hits the river, they say once you taste it, you never go back to eating it anywhere inland from there because it's so fresh. It
Yeah.
tastes so delicious.
Yeah. It's like anything to when you get fresh food. So how much fish you have in your freezer?
Well, we eat it pretty fast, and you only get a tag so many a year, and I only get to go out as often as I'd like to, as far as the salmon. Now, I'm more of a catch and release when it comes to pond and lake fishing. I have a boat. My husband and I go out together as a family with our son, and we can sit on the water in a nice shady spot and catch panfish and bass all day long. We we do a lot of catch and release. The early years, where we were fishing then, we filled our freezer pretty darn fast with a lot of good tasty fish. But once we filled our freezer, we kind of found it was not really worth keeping them all the time and just doing it more for fun, catch and release. Now, when it
Oh,
comes to salmon, obviously, if you're going to pay for a tag, you'll want to keep what you catch if you can.
all right. So what explain what a tag is to somebody who doesn't know.
Okay, so yeah, obviously you got to pay for your fishing license. And then in order to be able to, you got to get your combined angler's tag, which is your ability to tag salmon. If you do not have your tag, you're illegally fishing for salmon, basically. We have salmon steelhead, and then also on your combined tag, you, I believe, are allowed to go out on there's coastal fishing as well. So you can get your herring, or not herring, it's a halibut. It's, yeah, halibut tag. I think there's some other fish, but I don't get an opportunity to go out on the coast. So there's a whole nother rabbit hole of fishing out that direction that I have yet to experience, but someday would love to learn. But yeah, you got to have your tags. Otherwise, don't bother trying to fish for salmon, or it's not going to go well.
Okay, so I'm assuming the what do they call them? The guys who
Fishing
are
license?
yeah, no. The guys who are going to find you.
Oh, Fish and Wildlife, the fishing game
Yes, thank you.
officers.
Yes.
Yeah, fishing game will come talk to you if they, yeah, if they see some, so yeah, they'll check you out.
Okay. Okay. So can someone get like a temporary fishing license? Say like they're on vacation or something like that.
Absolutely, you definitely can get an out-of-state license, temporary fishing license. It'll cost you though. It costs a lot more than a local resident.
Okay. That doesn't seem fair.
Right? It's pretty expensive.
Okay. My father used to fish. My father, when we lived in Yonkers, New York, at the Hudson River, at the time, you could drop a bucket in the off the pier and pull up eel and crabs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Eels
That-
always went back in.
I
Nobody.
was gonna say, did you guys even eat the eels?
No, eels went right back in the water.
I wouldn't even know how to prepare them. I know they can be eaten. I just
Oh,
don't
I
know.
know. And there were people there who were specifically looking for eels. They were like, don't toss that back in the, well, we'll trade you the crabs for the eels. And they're like, no, that's not, they're going back in the water. You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't like it was difficult to do that. It was literally dropping a bucket in the water and just pulling it back up.
that leads to another topic, though. Speaking of getting your fishing license and your combined angler's tag, you also need a shellfish license if you decide to go
Oh
craft.
yeah, yes. But this was in the 60s, so let's
Sure,
go back in the time machine.
probably wasn't as strict back those days.
And the Hudson River was a lot different in the 60s than it is today.
I'm
So
sure.
um so I don't know. I'm sure there might be shellfish licensing now. I don't know that. But my father did take fishing seriously. We had all sorts of rods and reels, and my father had a tackle box full of things. And we were up in my parents had a cabin up in Vermont, and I remember waking up one day, and our cat would come up with us, and my cat got into the tackle box.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he pierced his lip with one of the things,
Oh
and he's
no.
he's playing with it, Anita. He's just batting it back and forth.
Wow. How was did he pierce it like straight through the middle of his
Right through the gum, the lip. So
Oh.
it was already pushed through. So it was just snip off the ends and pull it out.
Let me guess, I was like a treble hook lure.
You know what? You were that might be true, but I could not answer that question. It was
Ow.
shaped like a fish.
Oh my gosh. And of course, that's basically it could easily become a cat toy. If you cut off those hooks, a cat would probably go crazy over something like that.
Yeah. Afterwards, my father made a point to close securely the fishing tackle box.
Good idea. There is safety in place with fishing product. Yeah, for sure.
So I know my father would spend a lot of money on fishing equipment. Now, again, the times when my father had the cabin, if you fished your own property, you didn't need a license. If you fished elsewhere, now this is Vermont, and
Mhm.
again, we're talking probably 30 years ago. Things may have changed. I don't want to go, anyone to think, well, Mary said I could fish my property in Vermont. I'm saying 30-ish, 40-ish, possibly 50 years ago, this was a thing.
I
So
think it still was a thing up until just recently. I would almost be willing to bet. I think they made a rule just recently for seniors, even like veteran seniors used to be able to fish for free, and now they have to pay for a license.
I think,
Um,
how much money do you think you've spent on equipment?
oh my gosh, I can't put a number out there, but it's a lot. The bonus with going with a guide, though, I'll just put it out there. You can pay your seat price everything's supplied for you. That's kind of the luxury that I like about it. I don't have to go buy the rods and prep my bait and buy all my leader lines and I don't have to worry about it. I can just pay a seat price, get and show up, sit in the boat with a little heater and hope for the best.
Yeah, we took a cruise to Alaska, and my husband, my son-in-law, and his father, they went fishing on literally the first day of fishing season in Alaska. They didn't catch anything.
Oh shoot. I'm like, Alaska's really good for sockeye and got a lot of good king salmon.
Yeah, well, they didn't catch anything, and they were specifically told it was catch and release if they did catch anything. So there
Okay.
was no bringing home, and which was, honestly and truly fine by me.
Do you know what they were targeting out there?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Again, you know what? Not my hobby. I don't pay attention to it.
Right, right, right. I mean, in my hobby, I do it more as a luxury hobby on the outside of my obsession with my job. Um,
Okay, every hobby can be considered a luxury because my hobbies can change from time to time. And if you ask me how much money I spend on it, I'm gonna throw you a blank look and I don't know.
it's worth it to me.
I don't know how much I spend on this. Uh, uh, but I can tell you one of my hobbies is photography. So yeah, there's a lot of money invested in my equipment. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. My husband is also into photography and I see what he does. He's not into it that much, but it's enough. I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, so whatever hobby you have, if you really want to like get good at the craft of it, you're gonna spend money. All right.
Oh yeah.
And well, that's fine. That's called work-life balance. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna yell at people. If you can't afford a hobby, I'm going to yell at you right now. Okay. Is it you can't afford it because you're not making time for it? Is it you can't afford it because you're not charging enough in your business to have a work-life balance?
Good point.
Okay. And some hobbies can be inexpensive. I'm a reader. You could what I would do in that boat is I would have my either my Kindle or a book with me. I'm not sure I'd bring something electronic. I'd have to think about that.
So, Mary, you have not fished yourself.
No, not really.
Oh
When I
man.
was a kid, my father had a lot of fishing rods. And I did have three brothers, but there were like specific fishing rods for specific things. My father was
Hmm.
also a car mechanic. And I remember one day I walked past him and he yelled at me to get a specific wrench. So I went over to his thing and I got him a wrench because, and I handed it to him and apparently it was the wrong wrench. All right. But his, then I got the speech. I got the speech about the right tool makes the job easier. And I'm like, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. And I think my eyes rolled so far back to my head, I had to smack the back of my head. Okay.
Right.
Get from seeing forward again. And I can remember the first time I said that to one of my students. And my hands went over my face like that. Like, oh no. Those words, my father's words just came out of my mouth. But it's true. So how many fishing rods do you personally own? I'm not talking about your husband. I'm talking about you.
Me. Okay. I've got your 7 footers. I got your 9 footers. Let's see. I don't know. I have a 5 foot rod. I've got a 6 foot rod. I can't say I might have me personally. I might have, 3, 4, maybe 5 rods personally, but we have a lot more between my husband and I. We have a whole collection
All
of
right. So
tackle boxes, of gear, of all the stuff we need. We're kind of backstocked and prepared. We just have to go through it and prepare.
so in addition to my father having very, very specific rods, Okay.
Right. You got your lake rods, you got your river rods, you got, got your pond rods. Yeah.
He
Oh,
also had very specific reels.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I
So
personally am a
how many reels do you? Again, not your husband, you.
each pole has a rod, right? I'm
Right.
very specific on the kind of reel I have. I specifically fish very right-handed, reel with my left hand. There's a lot of folks out there that hold with their left hand, reel with their right. I can't do that. There's ones with the bail or, the close. There's close bails with the push button. Those drive me insane. I can't figure out how to use them. There's, forget, I can't remember if they're called bait casters, where you put your thumb on the spool that tensions the line going out. There's all kinds. I think I'm very specific and very simple, particularly. So if it's something that's not a bail flip on the right side with a reel on the left, I'm probably not going to hang on to it.
And that already told me way more information than I need to know about fishing.
And I'll tell you what, though, if somebody who knows a lot about fishing were listening to me right now, they would probably have a lot more to talk about or critique about what I know.
So how long have you been? When was the first time you went fishing?
Oh man, I was a child. Okay, so my dad was not a fishing person. He was very much a technological individual, very into computers. My mom was more into the fishing. She was into outdoors, hiking, fishing, and all that stuff. So I want to say she probably took me fishing. I want to say right about I might have been 5, 6, or 7, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly. But I remember when she took me to our lake down in town and had our own little kiddie rods and taught us how to cast in. And we were targeting trout. Back in those days, you used power bait, which I'm not a fan of. And particularly don't enjoy targeting trout in a lake anymore just because of how much farm raised trout are being restocked all the time. But yeah, I was very young. And that's one thing that my mom, helped me. That's a skill. Like, if you really think about it, it's kind of a survival skill um, that she taught me. And it's something I get to have because I know I don't have her anymore. So it's something that she really kind of imprinted on me that kind of got me and it's an addiction. I had an addiction as a child. As soon as I got to catch my first fish, I was wanting to get back out there all the time. But my dad never really had the interest, so we didn't get to do it as much as I would have loved.
Okay. All right. So my father, like I said, my father went fishing. I had three brothers, two of which would do anything my father did. My youngest brother was like, um, I would tag along if I had nothing better to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, see, and I have two brothers. They got tagged along too, but we were children, so what choice did they have?
Yeah.
But they do not like fishing at all. They're also very much into technology like my dad was.
Okay, that's interesting. You know.
Right?
So, where do I want to go with this? How often do you go fishing?
This year, I haven't had the opportunity to get out as much as I'd love to. But you know, there's winter steelhead right about February. I've gotten out a few times through March. Then we've gone springer fishing. That was the last salmon that my husband actually caught, that big one that you saw a picture of, that you got a piece of. That was the last time we got to go fishing. That was caught in May, right before you came up to visit in June. And this year I haven't got a chance to go out as much as I'd like because I've been invested in my business a little bit more. But I like to try and get out in the seasons. There's spring fishing, there's, winter fishing, there's summer fishing, then there's going to be fall fishing here soon. And uh, the silvers will be running here coming October. I have a planned trip for I'm hoping we'll get some silvers this year. Um, the season didn't go very well for summer steelhead this year. The heat came on too hard and fast, so the river got real low. So they kind of closed off summer steelhead. And
Okay.
yeah, but haven't had my boat on the water in probably about a year because I have a 14-foot, with a 7 horsepower motor on it, and we like to try and get out, at least a couple times a month in the good weather, but things have got really busy this year.
Okay. I think part of the reason why I don't think I would ever want to go fishing,
Oh,
the
what?
whole I know, sacrilegious.
Mary?
And I know, I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Because then I would have to gut and clean the damn fish.
Oh, you don't have to. Okay, so Mary,
Okay.
I want to challenge you to in the future someday. Maybe we could make an arranged fishing trip with a fishing guide, and we can just sit on the boat together, and the guide cleans the fish if we catch anything. Otherwise,
Oh,
it's
okay.
just a fun trip. Yeah,
Okay. So if somebody was thinking, this sounds like fun, I think maybe I want to go fishing. So your recommendation then would go on get a fishing charter, get a
yeah,
guide.
fishing charter. Yeah, I haven't ever. Definitely, I would recommend going out with a guide if you're into the river and want to catch those big game fish. Heck yeah. Otherwise, if you want to do something simple like going down to the creek, going down to a pond, or going to the lake, you could. If anybody's never done it before, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there to help you learn how to tie up all your tackle and what you're targeting, what baits you want to use. That's kind of how I got into it a little more. My mom gave me the basic skill, like the basic throw on a float and a hook with a
Yeah.
little weight. Yeah, with a worm. I love
Yeah,
using
yeah,
that.
yeah, the worms. And that's probably why as a teenager I'm like, yeah, I'm not putting a worm on a hook. I'm so
Oh, come on. That's all right.
here's the thing. Can't be good at everything.
It's so true. I'm not good at a lot of other things out there. I tell you what, I think the only things I know anymore are just trying to learn all I can in my career and learning what I can know in fishing.
All right. And so tell just a little bit about the different types of lures that I think. Because my father had an entire tackle box filled with all different types, and then he had live.
Okay.
Sometimes the live was like the little fish, and other times live was the worms.
Okay. So the live for I can't say I know 100%, but I think if I remember correctly, live would be the worm. I believe we are not allowed in the state of Oregon to use live bait, like such as a minnow.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised if people were doing smallmouth fishing along the river, if they were catching crawdads and hooking those up. And then if you're, let's move to the lake, for instance. There's a lot of good pan fishing. And in our area, we only have like your basic sun perch, your bluegills, your crappie, your largemouth bass. Anywhere else, I believe there's a lot of other variety. There's obviously stocked trout. And then some of the lakes out here have the kokanee, which is the transplanted sockeye salmon. They just, when they're landlocked, they call them kokanee. They say you can catch those the way you catch trout. You got your spoons, you got your bass lures, you got your, soft plastic jigs, you got your you got your your crappie jigs, there's all kinds of stuff out there, and it gets deeper as you get into it more because there's so many different species of fish that you're targeting and what you want to use specifically. And when let's just say we're on the river, trying to go for steelhead salmon, you're going to be either bobber dogging with some roe, or you're going to be side drifting with some roe, or some people throw spinners or spoons. There's all kinds of all, and you want to like have the right length rod for what you're targeting. You want to have everything. It's all something to learn.
Okay. One of my clients who was an avid fisherman, this was New York. So let's go back 10-ish years ago. He had a fish tank filled with minnows that he would use for fishing.
Okay, that's your fresh bait right there.
He would breed them in the tank and then use them for fishing.
That's cheap bait, in fact. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think we had one of our major lakes had a live bait was used, which was an invasive species that mass multiplied in that lake. And I don't know if that's part of the reason why they don't really like us doing the live baits.
And that may very well be why. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the laws in New York were like 10, 15 years ago
Yeah,
regarding.
totally different, probably. Another thing, like some states allow you to do night fishing. Well, we don't, we're not allowed to do that here. People go night fishing for catfish in other states. Like we got catfish, but we don't do night fishing.
Okay. All right. Wow. So, Anita, I learned a lot.
Oh, good. I was worried.
And if anybody who's listening to this and wants to say, "Hey, I think I want to learn how to fishing," could they get in contact with you?
Absolutely. I mean, if they did want to, yeah, for sure. I'm on Facebook and I'm friends with Mary. So if you hunt me down by my name, it's spelled Anyta, and my last name is Klock, Clock. Um, if you just search that on Mary's Friends, you probably could find me there.
Send me a message. All right. So this was fascinating. We'll probably have to at some point do some sort of fishing guide trip.
Yeah, we do.
You
That would be
know,
so fun. If anything, Mary, if you didn't have to touch the fish or catch anything, you at least enjoy sitting on a river, taking in the view, because it's just tranquil. It's so nice to just sit in nature and I don't know, flow on the river. It's a thing to experience. I love it.
okay, that's good to know. So again, Anita, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And everybody join us next week when I interview somebody probably far more interesting than me.
Thank you, Mary. Really thankful to be here.
No, totally my pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
No problem. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.